My name is Monk Rowe. We are filming in Los Angeles for the Hamilton College Jazz Archive. I'm pleased to have as my guest Pete Jolly, who is a piano player of wide reputation. Can I say that?
Whatever you like.
I think so.
Thank you, thank you.
Welcome.
It's nice to be here. Nice to have you out in California.
And yeah, it's we were talking before the cameras were rolling about the difference in climate and a lot of different things actually. And I've been hearing a lot of different stories from the West Coast musicians than I'm used to hearing, especially about the studios and so forth.
Okay, right. Yeah, that's.
But we'll get to that because you're an East Coast person.
Right.
First yourself.
I'm classified as a West Coaster, but I'm really from the East Coast. Right. I was born in New Haven, Connecticut, and my father was an accordionist. And at the age of about 3½, which sounds crazy, I know, but it's true, he handed me this little 12-bass accordion.
A 12 what?
12-bass accordion.
With a, when you say basses, buttons?
Well, yeah, well, 12 basses on the left side, but it was a keyboard, piano keyboard.
Okay.
I should say, technically, it's a piano accordion.
All right.
That's the right term. And he got me started playing on that, and then pretty soon that led to a little bigger accordion. And then I took accordion lessons in New York City by a gentleman by the name of Joe Viviano when I was quite young. That was in the 30s, before World War II. And at about the age of 6, the piano came in. I was at somebody's place, and I went over to the piano. Then my mother thought, hey, it would be a good idea if we get a piano in the house, because we didn't have one. So in those days, they had families that wanted to get rid of these big pianos. They didn't want them anymore. You know, you could buy them for $12 or anything. You know, just take it.
Just move it, and you can have it, right?
Because we couldn't get it in the front door. We had to get a guy to bring it up through the window. You know, it was one of those kind of things in Connecticut. This was in Wallingford. So I always, you know, so I started fooling around with the piano as well as taking my lessons on accordion. And then I started taking piano lessons in Connecticut at about the age of 6. And every time I'd go over for a lesson, she used to teach some of the students at Choate, that prep school there. It was right next to Choate. And so you know, she said, well, you have to play this. She showed me what I had to do with my hands, you know, different positions. And then I would come in and play what I was supposed to play, but then I would do some other things. And what I'm leaning to is I think I always had that natural ability that I wanted to improvise. And that came out later. I mean, it wasn't I didn't go to school to learn how to improvise. What I'm saying, it was in my mind, and then my dad used to bring home wonderful records, like with Teddy Wilson and Benny Goodman. So that's got me started, the swing era, you know, the swing like Teddy. And of course, boogie woogie was a big thing too back in the early 40s. And I was into that. That's how I started, you know, with the piano, with the boogie woogie.
How did this piano teacher deal with your inclination?
She was very nice. She was good about that. She knew that I had something different going on than the usual student, and because I would once in a while go in there and just play her a tune, you know, one of the popular tunes of the day, you know, and it wasn't my assignment, you know, it had nothing to do with me. But anyway, and then I studied harmony theory, and as far as my first playing engagement, I'm trying to think back. It goes, when I was in grammar school in Connecticut at the time, there was a group of young guys that got together and played, directed by an older musician. I was the youngest. I was still in grammar school, and the rest of the band was from high school. The trumpet player, the tenor sax player, and this guitar player was the leader, and he would get us these little gigs, playing for weddings, playing for picnics, playing by the lake. And and at that time, I was kind of like switching back and forth from accordion to piano. I'd play maybe one set on accordion and then go over and play the piano, play another set. So, and that went on till the end of World War II, because we were the band that played the VJ dance in August of '45 in this square. And I was still in 8th grade.
Wow.
And we played this gig, and the town was just going crazy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I could remember these were highlights, you know.
Sure.
The bells were ringing, the horns were blowing, and everybody was in a uniform, and they had this big dance right in the town square.
Mm-hmm.
And I was part of that band.
Yeah. Didn't you, I can't remember if you had mentioned this to me, but you could remember the air raid drills in school.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you dive under the desks?
No, we had to go over to
hall?
Choate School.
You had to what?
We had to go over to Choate, because I went to a school that's called North Main, and it was just a block away from Choate. So whenever there was a drill, we used to march over there.
Uh-huh.
And there was a basement area or something. I don't remember, but oh yeah, I remember all of that. But
yeah.
But playing that gig, and that's when I learned to play a lot of tunes, was with that little band. He had all of these stock arrangements, you know.
Yeah.
But I learned how to play a lot of.
So you're learning
a lot of the standards. It was good. It was good for me.
Mm-hmm. To play by ear and to read at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. He you know, we had to play all kinds of music because of the various ethnic events. You know, if it was a Polish wedding, you'd have to play polkas. If it was an Italian wedding, you'd have to know some Italian songs. So, you know, I was only about, what? God, 1940. So anyway, this got me started in learning some of the pop tunes of the day. During the war years, there were a lot of wonderful tunes that came out. And, God, I'm trying to think of, okay, 1945, the war ended.
Mm-hmm.
I have an interesting story. Then my family moved to Phoenix.
And before we move to Phoenix,
go ahead.
I have to ask you something about your name.
Oh, sure, yeah.
In one of the books I looked at, they had your last name as Sirajil. Help me out.
Sarah Jolie.
Sarah Jolie. Okay.
And the Jolie became the Jolly.
Uh-huh.
The Gioli.
Uh-huh.
And it was sort of a nickname that they threw at me, and then we decided to use it.
Yeah.
Because it was, everybody I would say, Sarah Jolie. Well, how do you spell that? Is it C? Is it an S? And
then you got to deal with a J, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's some names like that, Joe Garagiola.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's similar. It's Sarah Jolie. So, yeah, my father was Italian, of course.
Mm-hmm. Was he first generation, or had you been in that area for a long time?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
He was first. Well, as a matter of fact, I think my grandfather came over first.
Okay.
And Dad came over when he was maybe 4 or 5 to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then later he became a citizen, you know.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't born here. But his sister, my aunt, was born here. So then they moved from New York up to Connecticut.
Okay.
So that's how the names. That's.
Right. How come Phoenix? Why
Phoenix?
Across the country? Why across the country?
That crossed my mind too. You know, I haven't finished 8th grade yet, right?
Yeah.
So, well, my mother wanted to go out there for climatic reasons. And my dad, during the war, made a trip out as far as Tucson because the trains were just packed with troops. It was hard to... He worked at a defense plant back then. It was a silver company, but then during the war they made incendiary devices and 20-millimeter shells and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of silver. So he had a vacation, came to Arizona. This is, I'm assuming like 1944, maybe 43, to see what it was like. So the war ended, in August of 45, and we moved to Phoenix in November of 45. And I didn't know what to expect, because in my mind, I said, in those days, I just visioned cowboys and Indians, you know, at my age.
We're going west, right?
Exactly,
yeah.
you know. Yeah, I still have a lot of friends back east that don't cross the Hudson, you know.
Yeah.
As soon as you cross the Hudson, man, you've gone west.
Oh.
So, yeah, we moved to Phoenix. And I came back a couple of summers and stayed with my my aunt, my grandmother, and still studied. Went back a couple of years. Still listening to jazz. You know, that was always my forte. And in Phoenix, when I arrived there, I started to play gigs there, and eventually joined the union, and met up with some very good players. By that time, by the time I got out of high school, you know, it was Charlie Parker time and Bud Powell and people like that I was listening to and being influenced by.
Yeah.
And there was a wonderful guitar player that lived in Phoenix who I played with, Howard Roberts. Yeah, so we used to play all the time. And we had little gigs that, and I kept listening to, and then I guess I'm trying to think of everything that came along in those days. There was Chet and Jerry Mulligan.
Yeah.
Then Horace Silver, George Wallington, George Shearing, of course, Oscar. So then I kind of went from the swing thing, you know, into the bop thing. I actually converted in Phoenix, you know. That's where the conversion took.
Yeah.
You know, it's wild.
Meanwhile, your parents going, what are you going to do to make a living here? Did they recognize that you were going to be a musician?
Oh, definitely.
And they felt all right about it?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Good.
Because while I was in high school, I was starting to work 6 nights a week.
Oh, so you were making, yeah, so you had
So I was already,
yourself.
So the guy at the union said, you're going to have to join the union.
Oh.
And I got in I think I got in a year earlier. I think you have to be I don't know what it was, 16. I think I was in when I was 15. And one of the jobs I had there, it's kind of a funny story. It's a cute story, rather. It's Howard Roberts and I were working doing a hotel gig, and it was time to graduate from high school. So I think graduation was like a Friday night or whatever it was. So I had to get a substitute to work for me so I could go graduate in high school.
Oh, wow.
So I guess what I'm trying to say, I've been playing a long time.
Yes. And I see, eventually you got with Georgie Auld, Shorty Rodgers.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this all happened in Phoenix, too. What happened in Phoenix towards the last few years I was there, before I moved to California, there was an architect that decided he wanted to bring in jazz artists for 10 days, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then through the following week. And a few days off, bring in somebody else. So I had the house trio at that time. So I got to work with Jack Teagarden, Georgie Auld, Chet Baker, Herb Geller, Barney Kessel, Maynard Ferguson. I mean, I got to work with all the guys. In the meantime, Howard had moved over to California. He says, "Pete, when are you going to come over?" I said, "Well, man, I'm having too much fun here. It's really great. You know, every 10 days I'm into a new bag with somebody." You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So after about, he had that club in two locations. It was called the Jazz Note. And after the second one fell apart, because he didn't really own the club, he had to find a club that had a back room that could be used for concerts. And he made some arrangements with the owner of the establishment, I guess, to get a percentage of what they would either eat or drink, and then he would get an admission. So that's how he did it. He had to find a place that had kind of a dual facility situation. And But it was a lot of experience for me.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I had come over to the coast and sat in with Shorty Rodgers and Shelley at the Lighthouse when they were working with Howard Rumsey. Howard told Shorty about me. So anyway, that gig ended, the Jazz Mill, which lasted, oh my God, at least, I think it ended about 1950, 54.
Mm-hmm.
So Georgie Auld and Barney Kessel called me and said, we have a gig out here in the Valley in Studio City. Do you want to come over on the 4th of July and work? I said, sure, great. So I worked that weekend, and then I was asked to go work at the Hague on the off night Monday with the trio. And I believe the trio was, I believe it was, God, either, it could have been Red Mitchell and possibly Larry Bunker. But anyway, I worked the off night at the Hague.
This is the Hague?
It was called the Hague. That's where Jerry Mulligan and Chet Baker.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful little room. I mean, and the guy was fantastic. He never made a lot of money. You know, he would run out of, if he ran out of booze, he'd send somebody down to the drugstore and pick up and bring it back.
Right.
It was beautiful. But anyway, Shorty came in that night and said, how would you like to join the Giants? I said, well, great. I said, because I played with him down at the Lighthouse a couple of times. Because Howard hired me for one night or 2 nights, and then I sat in with him before that. And he said, well, we're going to be going on a tour in September. And he said, we're going to start at the Hague. We're going to play a couple of weeks here. And then we'll rehearse a couple of weeks before we play the Hague. So I said, and this was around the 4th of July. I said, okay, man, I'll be right over. So I packed up and moved over.
What kind of money were they offering back then for that kind of gig?
Oh, God. Okay, when I went on the road with Shorty Rodgers, I got $175 a week.
It's probably a lot more than some people were making, though, huh?
Well, to me, it was great. You know,
Yeah.
it was, of course, what was great was playing with these guys.
I guess, yeah.
Playing with Shelley and that kind of a rhythm section. Curtis Counts was in the rhythm section. Curtis played bass, and Jimmy Jufrey. That was the band. It was, and Shorty, quintet.
Wow.
And it was a long tour. It started in San Diego, and we might have even played in Syracuse. It was called the Festival of Modern American Jazz, 1950. Into 54, and it was Stan Kenton's orchestra, Art Tatum trio, Charlie Ventura with Marianne McCall, and piano player from Massachusetts was playing with her. He plays solo all the time, you know who I mean.
Dave McKenna?
Dave, yeah. Dave was playing piano. And with Charlie Ventura. Then they had Jimmy Smith. He did a thing. It was like 2 bus loads. I was
wow.
Oh, yeah, it was great. Every night.
1954, eh?
And then Frank Rossellino was on Stan's band, and Lenny Niehaus, and Bill Holman, Jack Montrose, the sax section, and Sam Noto. You remember Sam?
Sure.
He was on the band. Mel Lewis, Max Bennett. That was Stan's band. But anyway, that's how I got my foot in the door. Before I went on that tour, we did an album for RCA out here called East Coast, West Coast Jazz for a guy by the name of Jack Lewis, who was A&R for RCA for quite a few years and recorded a lot of wonderful jazz. So on this tour, when we got to New York, Jack offered me a contract to do my own album. And so my very first album was done in March of 1955 on RCA. So, and I did I guess I did about 4 different albums for them at the time,
Beginning to feel like, yeah, I'm doing it here. I'm I'm making.
Well,
I'm
maybe
making
that's
a
why
scene.
Jack called that first album "Jolly Jumps In."
Yeah.
That was his title. I had nothing to do with it because in those days I said, "Hey, man, I'm just happy to get an album out,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it."
Yeah. Well.
And there's an original tune on it, El York, and he wanted to title it that because there was a guy at RCA by the name of Bob York.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Oh, well, okay." It was called Relaxing originally, and he said,
Yeah.
"Well, do you mind if we call it El York?" I said, "No, that's okay.
Uh-huh.
I don't care."
Let me play something for you here, because I think this may be about the time that you're talking about. I have to check my dates.
Wow.
You recall this
Well,
session?
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Interesting concept.
That was Jack again. He wanted to get all the artists to do a version of Lullaby of Birdland.
Yeah.
That's what he did.
Uh-huh.
So when he came out, he said, "Well, I want you to do a version of Lullaby of Birdland." I said, "Well, why?" He says, "Well, because I'm going to do this album with various artists."
Uh-huh.
I forgot all the artists on there, but there
Oh,
were
there's
Al Cohn, I think.
Al Cohn,
Billy Byers.
Charlie Barnett, Quincy Jones even led a thing.
Yeah.
You know, this is 1955.
Yeah, 55. That's when everything started to happen,
Uh-huh.
where I got recognition.
Right.
Right. It's a long time ago.
There you go, right there.
Yeah.
And who was with you there?
It looks like get my glasses to see that a second through that paper.
Art Madigan.
Oh, Art Madigan
Mart.
and Buddy Clark.
Uh-huh.
They did that with me, not Shelley. Yeah, it was Art Madigan. Okay, that was recorded again during that March period of '55. That was the same time I did my first album.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, boy, I've got this around someplace, but Barbara Carroll, Quincy, Al Cohn, Ernie Wilkins, Andre, Billy Byers, Milt Bernhardt, Joan Newman.
Nice, huh?
Yeah,
Well, if you can't find yours, I'll let you buy this from me. How's that?
I'm pretty sure I have it. Yeah, that was a project. I wonder if they gave Jack any credit on these things. Sometimes in those days, I was looking for the producer. Anyway.
Well, the 50s seem to be,
Jack was really a wonderful man. I mean, he still lives out here. I see him periodically.
Yeah. You went on to play with Richie Kamuka, Buddy Collette, Benny Goodman, Woody Herman.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of people. What was Woody like for you?
I worked with Woody for about 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. It was out here, 2 different clubs. And I believe Nat Pierce couldn't do it or something, so they called me in, and Wally Hyder recorded those things at the, what was it? One was Basin Street West, and the other was Peacock Lane, or I think it was called Peacock Lane. And no, Woody was wonderful. He would just, I know one thing, he would, if there was a piano solo, he would let me open it up, and if it was only going to be, like one chorus, I'd end up playing 2 or 3, which was nice,
Yeah, then he'd cue the band in whenever he wanted him to come in.
And Benny was a short stint, too. That was only for 2 weeks at Disneyland.
Oh.
What had happened was Disneyland wanted him to play for a couple of weeks, and then he wanted to do an album for Capitol. So Tommy Newsom came out. He was living in New York then before he came out here for the Tonight Show, and he wrote all the charts. That was in '64. And we rehearsed, and rhythm section was Colin Bailey and Monty Budwig. And it was wonderful, wonderful experience to work with Benny, you know. And he was sort of the same way, you know. Play another one, Pops, you know. That was how he would say. And I was a young kid there taking this all in. I said, you know, God. But as far as I never did go on the road with any big bands. That was sort of before my time.
Yeah.
When I got out here, then I started to work with a trio or a quintet. I liked small group work, and because you know you could stretch out more as a pianist. In a big band, you know, you get an occasional solo, or you're comping for each tenor player that wants to play 10 choruses a piece. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
that long line of horn players.
And pretty soon, it's always the piano player and the bass player that's last. And you've been doing this for, you know.
Yeah.
No, but I enjoy big bands. Don't get me wrong. I just prefer the smaller groups, the quintets, the quartets, the trios.
Tell me about this tune, "Little Bird."
All right, that was written by Dick Grove and myself. I used to. Dick Grove had a wonderful rehearsal band, great arrangement, just a great arranger. You know, he just passed on, you know, not too long ago. And whatever it was, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, he would rehearse in a rehearsal band, and I'd go down and either sit in with a band or listen. And Dick would say, "You want to play a couple of tunes with the band?" I said, "Sure." So there was one chart he had where I was able to take that one little line he had and made a tune out of it, "Little Bird." So I played it for Dick. You know, I said, "Dick, I think you should get half of this," because he didn't remember it. I said, "Yeah." Right. I said, "This is So
that was nice of you.
Yeah. So I said I really heard one little thing in your arrangement and I transferred it and became a tune. You know. So we recorded it I played it for Bones Howe, and Bones Howe said, "Well, I think I got a company that'll record you. Sounds like we got something." So it was with Ava, and then Jackie Mills and Tommy Wolfe were running the company. Fred Astaire owned it. And it was originally Choreo, from choreographer. That was the name of the company, but they had a lawsuit. Somebody in Texas had that name, so in those days it cost Fred Astaire about $50,000, which was a lot of money back then, to change the name and change all the letterheads, the logo. So he named it after his daughter, Ava. So it came out on Ava. And that's the story of Little Bird. And then it was we got a Grammy nomination for it back in '64.
Yeah, I think it was originally released in '62, and
maybe it was '63 the Grammy.
Yeah.
Might have been Sweet September for '64, but I know I got two in a row, 2 years. It's either '63, '64, '64. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it would be '63.
Nice.
Yeah.
The studio scene out here was pretty busy. Well,
getting back to the mid-'50s, like when I came out here, there were all kinds of jazz dates going on. I mean, it was wonderful. It was just thriving. Pacific Jazz was recording. Contemporary Records was recording out here. Of course, RCA, Bethlehem, and a lot of smaller companies were recording jazz albums all the time. So every week you'd be on somebody's album. So, you know, it was a wonderful world because I was working 6 nights a week with Shorty. We're playing jazz 6 nights a week. And then we'd throw in a few record dates, and it was all jazz. It wasn't commercial recording, which I got into later. This was like, you know, this is what I came out to do. And I was in a dreamland. I said, my God, I'm making jazz records and I'm playing jazz every night, 6 nights a week. And
I'm getting paid for it, too.
exactly.
Wow.
So it was wonderful. I will always cherish those years. It was just a wonderful experience. And to play with all the various musicians that I played with, too.
Sounds like you were appreciating them while it was happening, too. Sometimes, you know,
Oh, yeah.
you don't seem to recognize the times that are, you know, those are the good old days, I guess.
Yeah, and now when I came out here to work with Shorty's band, well, Shelly Manne was playing with him, you know, and I never worked with anybody of that caliber, you know, and I learned a lot by listening to him, and we enjoyed each other. But I mean, that's where I really started to fine-tune myself, you know, because, you know, I had some shortcomings, and I felt there were some creases that I was able to get rid of because of, you know, having that guy by your side. I mean, God, every night, 6 nights a week for a year. I mean,
right. I saw an article in Keyboard Magazine that was entitled "From MASH to Dallas." This seems to indicate that you played on a lot of sessions eventually.
oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, God, yeah.
When did that start?
Okay. The very first movie that Shorty has a small speaking part in it, and I think Ralph Pena's in it too, and Shelley, is Man with the Golden Arm.
Oh, yeah.
With Frank Sinatra.
Sinatra.
Then the second jazz movie, which really got a lot of, we did 2 soundtracks. There was the jazz soundtrack, and then there was the scoring soundtrack that Johnny Mandel wrote. That was for I Want to Live. That was a great band. We had Art Farmer, Frank Rossellino, Bud Shank, Shelley, Red Mitchell, Jerry Mulligan, and myself. Yeah, and Jack Lewis again. He went with that United Artists. He had left RCA. So Jack was always looking for someplace to get focused in on some jazz, you know. And so that was the second, one of the second pictures that, and in that picture, we're actually visually seen, we're playing a tune, and now getting to the commercial things, about that time I was starting to work with my own trio quite often. My first trio consisted of Bob Berteau and Bob Neal. Bob Berteau's bass player, Bob Neal. And then I was going out working my own jobs at some of the clubs as well. And then after that, I started getting calls for some commercial dates, you know, for, I'm trying to think of back then in the beginning, I don't know if it was Dinah Shore or somebody, you know, whatever it was, I don't remember, you know, so it's doing a record date, right, for various people, and that progressed into, I did a lot of TV film, and when I really got into that, that was due to Earl Hagen, when he started I Spy.
Oh.
And I did all the I Spy shows, all of the, oh God, how many shows did he have? Mod Squad, 8 is Enough, That Girl, Andy Griffith, oh God, he had, we had 2 or 3 shows every week we were doing.
Wow.
So, so I did an awful lot of TV film. And then as far as recordings, God, Herb Alpert, Sinatra. I was on This Guy's in Love with You with Herb, and I was on...
Wait a minute now. Are you the guy that played diddle-a-ding, diddle-a-ding?
On the...
And This Guy's in Love with You? On the record?
Well, there were 2 pianos. It was Bert and I playing.
Oh.
It was Bert Bacharach and yeah. I don't remember if we both, I think we were both doing the same thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Double track piano.
There were 2 pianos on the date, right.
That's just such Like,
And A Taste of Honey, I was on that one.
oh, with Herb Alpert?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I did that one. I was on New York, New York with Frank.
You've played some significant little piano riffs then, you know.
But I'm trying to think of the list of, to get my bio out, but I mean,
Yeah.
I had a lot of different record dates with all kinds of different artists. Dean Martin, Bing Crosby, through the years, you know.
Do you get statements from the union, from the Recording Manufacturers Society or whatever, about things that you've played on, and you get royalty or residual?
I don't get a printout of everything. The only thing I get a printout now are the movies that have gone to TV.
Oh.
And we get a special overall payment once a year from that. But as far as records, no. There's no. Well, there's a phonograph special payment fund, but it's based on sales. And it really doesn't pin everything down, you know. It doesn't go all the way back. It goes back 5 years.
I see.
And it keeps going back. Like if it's always 5 years back, the next year it'll skip that year and another 5 years back. So to go all of, as a matter of fact, there's a friend of mine down in Georgia that's doing a discography of all the things that I've done, you know. And it's an ambitious project for him, I'm sorry. And he's almost done. He's at Valdosta State University, Ed Barr.
Oh.
Maybe you know him? Or
No, I do not.
Nice man.
Oh.
Writes liner notes and head of the jazz department down
I'd like
there.
to correspond with them. Maybe you can
Yeah, oh
get
yeah.
in touch.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a sense of when you were doing a particular tune of some of the things you've mentioned, and the guys that were on the session were saying, this is going to be a big one? Or are you just churning them out so fast that you never stop to think about that?
You know, once in a while you'd hear that, but nobody can really predict, you know, that you get a feel sometimes that this is going to be. The producers have a better knack at that than I think the musicians do. They feel like if something might be is going to be a hit, and that's what makes a good producer. But for instance, Little Bird, getting back, I don't want to go backwards here, but when we recorded it, we had to make sure that it was 2 minutes and 35 seconds. Or 2:45, and don't touch 3 minutes, because you're not going to get the airplay. Because back in those days, we were getting AM play, because it hit the charts, you know. And,
oh yeah.
But the charts were different in those days. The charts were more musical. You know, back in '63, '64, there wasn't. We weren't.
Yeah, before the Beatles took over.
Yeah, right, exactly. We didn't get to go through the Monkees and the Beatles and Presley and all of that came in, you know.
What was the, let's say, the most obvious rock and roll date that you may have participated in? Or was there any?
I did one date with Frank Zappa.
No kidding.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Lumpy Gravy or something.
You were on Lumpy Gravy?
Yeah.
Get out.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. And did he have
I'm trying to think of these names that I've been worked with since, you know, it's been a lot of years. But
Yeah.
oh, yeah. You know what he said to me when I was on the date? Because it was a late date. It didn't start till like 1 o'clock or 11:30 at night. And I remember leaving the house. I said, oh, boy, it's going to be one of these long dates. At Capitol over here. So he says, it was very complimentary. He said, Pete, I remember when I was going to high school up in Lancaster, and you were playing with Shorty Rodgers, and you guys came by, and you just killed me. I loved it. Yeah.
Cool.
That was Frank Zappa.
He had quite a band, Ian Underwood and
Oh, Ian, yeah.
some of those guys.
That was, yeah. I used to work with Ian a lot in the studios. On
yeah, he
film
became
work.
quite a studio ace, didn't he?
Oh, on every date he'd be there, because he was into he's one of the first guys that got into synths.
Yeah.
I mean, a patcher. He was patching all the time. You know, I mean, back in those days, man, he was patching. Chords galore.
Wow.
And I'm looking at him like, whoa, I don't think I could ever get into that. But he was a master at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that.
Did you enjoy that date?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting because, it's sort of like, I don't know quite what to expect, It came off. It was a challenge, though. I remember it was a little bit different,
Was it a live session, or were you doing
it was live.
overdubs? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a live session. Yeah, it was, I don't think I'm on all the tracks, but I'm on some of them.
I'll have to get that album out.
Yeah, I don't even have it myself, but I know I'm on it, yeah.
Now, did you ever, you must have heard yourself on the radio quite a bit with all this stuff you were doing. Not just under your own name.
But yeah, with other artists,
okay, Here Comes Herb Alpert on the radio, and
right.
I'm on that. There must have been a certain amount of satisfaction in that.
Yeah, especially if it wasn't something musical, Right. If it was just something too commercial, I wouldn't even want to listen to it. But I just went in to do the job so I could make the mortgage payment.
Right. Wasn't something that you'd call your neighbor over and say, listen.
Exactly. Yeah, right. But there were some lovely things that I did that I'm proud of, and.
I like that photo. That's nice.
You don't have that, or would be?
At a performance in Tokyo's Budokan Stadium, the group drew over a crowd of 100,000 enthusiastic fans. This was the Lighthouse All-Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Japan loves jazz, don't they?
Wonderful. Yeah, we had a wonderful trip. It was just a great trip with. Shelley was on that trip, and Shorty, of course, Bud Shank. Jimmy Jufrey came over, too, for that.
Wow.
Flew in from Massachusetts, yeah. And I hadn't seen Juf in a long time.
Still playing good?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's still living in Massachusetts, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I saw his name in something a while ago. So you list your influences as Red Garland, Oscar, of course. This is this fellow's opinion. He can hear bits of George Shearing.
Yeah, right.
Do you feel that you have influenced any people yourself? Some of the younger players? Frank Zappa, maybe?
That's a good question, and it's a difficult one for me to answer because there have been times when I've listened to somebody, and because I know when I hear myself immediately that it's me. Because what you just played me, I don't play that way anymore.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that when I hear that kind of piano playing, I know that goes way back. That was in my 20s.
Right.
So, because I had gone through a lot of influences since then. Like the way it's like a recipe. You take a little bit of Red Garland, a little bit of Horace Silver, a little bit of George Wallington, a little bit of Bud, a little bit of Bill Evans, whatever, and hopefully you come up with some kind of style that you can be identified with. I would say that my style is more of a swinging style, and for that, when I play a solo, I used to work with Zoot Sims a lot on jam sessions and stuff, and when I'm playing my solo with my right hand, I'm thinking of, as I'm comping with my left, I'm thinking of some of those things Zoot played on the sax, and that's really where I'm coming from.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be just a piano player that influences you.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That was a big influence. That that swing style he had, you know, that was comparable.
Great.
But I have heard some people, and I say, gee, I wonder if that's me, and it's not. You know, that's happened. You know? Oh, yeah.
It's neat.
That's happened, but... so I guess, you know, we all go through our periods of... Because what else can we do? You know, you don't go to school to learn this. You have to... You listen to these people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go home and play their records, and if you might like a little bit of what they do here, so you take some of that and some of this and some of that. And Garner I love too. I keep forgetting. Garner was a big influence. As a matter of fact, when every once in a while I'll go into that Garner approach. He was a giant. I thought.
What's coming up in the future for you?
Okay, we have some concerts coming up, and then a new album that we'll be working on. We just did U of A, University of Arizona, did a concert over there, and did a concert down at Annenberg Theater down at Palm Springs. And then we're going to be doing 2 concerts at a place called The Vintage down in the desert, and then another place called, what's it called? Darn it. Anyway, it's another private club down there. I can't think of the name of it right now. And I'm still trying to get into some more jazz festivals, getting that going. It's not easy. Like last year I did the Ottawa, then I did a short engagement up in San Francisco. You
do your own promotion and booking?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I don't really have an agent or a manager, you know. People call, and then, you know, we make arrangements.
Yeah.
It's, I spent a marvelous evening about 2 weeks ago. George Shearing was playing down at the Cerritos Center for the Arts with Joe Williams. And a friend of mine from Cincinnati came out with his daughter, and he wanted to see it, so he invited me. I had never seen the auditorium, but George sounded marvelous. And Don Bagley's a bass player. He went with us.
Oh, yeah.
Don. And he remarked, he said, geez, 4 people packed this whole place. You know, I said, yeah. And it was just, the drums came out for Joe. Joe did the second half. And that's the part that really amazes you when you see that many people to come out and see 4 people. It was a great concert.
That's good.
And George sounded marvelous, as usual. You know, he had some nice stories to tell, some funny stories that George has. But he must be, what, pushing, what, 80?
I think he is.
Close, 79, 80. Joe, too. Joe sounded great.
Joe celebrated his 80th birthday recently.
Right, yeah. So to see these guys up there filling the place.
Right. There's hope for the future.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I'm anxious to listen to your CD. And
I don't know. Well, I guess the only thing we didn't discuss was the accordion.
You know, I've known a number of people who started out on the accordion and moved to, was there Italian, was the Italian music the reason for the accordion?
Could be. Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah, well.
Marty Page played accordion.
No kidding.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a list of names, yeah. Marty.
Do you still use the accordion?
Barry Manilow. But he's, you know, I'm just saying that who played accordion. Well, there's some other ones that are kind of sleeper. George Shearing made a couple of records on accordion.
Get out.
Yeah.
Well, how about yourself? I mean, what's...
Well, I did one album with Terry Gibbs.
Okay.
Terry Gibbs plays the Duke. It was the quartet album, and we did all Duke Ellington tunes, and it's hard as heck to find it. It was on, I think it was for Mercury. And it was total accordion, bass. Let's see, who was on that? Gary Fromer, maybe. Was it? I don't think who the bass player was. Leroy, maybe. But anyway, it was vibes, accordion, bass, and drums. That was it. The whole album is accordion. And I got to stretch out on that, which, you know, I never got to do too much out here. Shelley used to kid me. He said, bring the accordion out.
Is it different? The attack is slower on it, isn't it? The
on the accordion?
response of the notes, yeah. Maybe not. Maybe I'm mistaken.
It's actually it's a little faster
than the piano.
Oh yeah, it's
no
faster.
kidding.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that I used to listen to people like Art Van Dam, you know, and one's an air instrument, so there's some things you can do on accordion that you can't really do on a piano. And my first album, Jolly Jumps In, has some accordion on it. About 2 or 3, maybe 4 tracks with accordion. Then I was on a track with Buddy DeFranco on accordion on an album, as well as piano. But, played a gig with Buddy once up in, the piano was so bad up in Denver.
Oh.
And I happened to have the accordion with me. And we played the gig with accordion because the piano was just horrible. So, yeah, we didn't get into accordion, but I thought maybe I'd throw that in.
Yeah.
You might be able to splice it and put it in there.
Sure.
But
well, it's good
I don't play it that often now. I've used it in, you know, in TV or movies, but it's always like bringing your accordion, and there's always somebody having dinner in a restaurant. I'm not on camera, of course. You know, you're watching this, and they want, you know, some ethnic music while these people are eating dinner, you know, or whatever, you know.
Right.
That kind of thing. You very seldom get a call to play jazz on accordion.
Yeah.
I was playing a lot of jazz on accordion, but I guess when I got over to the piano, I found that I was able to do more with the piano than I could do with the accordion.
Have you had to play electronic keyboards a lot in this, you know, throughout your career? Yeah,
not many. I have a Rhodes. I got into that. Wonderful Rhodes. I went to Europe for them, for CBS Musical Instruments. And I bought one synthesizer, which I have at home, a DX7.
Yep.
And that's as far as I got. And
I have one too.
You do?
Yeah. We may be the only 2 left. And they move so fast, you know. Oh,
I know that. About the time that happened, there were guys like Ian Underwood and people that have invested time and a lot of money into their investment, and they were really into it. And you know, I came from an acoustic. Yeah. You know, I was. You know, when all that happened, I said, I'm not going to get into synthesizers. I just got to the DX7. I said, that's enough. And I just stopped at that point. And I just went back to just acoustic piano, and maybe I'll pick up the accordion again, just for, like, you know, do it. I haven't done it in a while, you know, to play jazz on it, you know. Yeah. I've got the instruments at home. I've got 3 accordions. Yeah.
Well, get them out and dust them off. Keep that tradition up going.
Yeah, there aren't many left, you know, really, honestly. Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah.
I hope your future projects go well.
Yeah, I hope we run across each other soon. And I'm looking forward to viewing this in the future.
Very good.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.